Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming, and I'm here with Mr. Sizzle,
What's going on?
Chandler Zirkle. So, this week the Venom trailer dropped. There are many long-time fans who had some mixed emotions about the first one. You were one of them. They were kind of disappointed in the first. Some of them were disappointed. I can't say everyone. Should the fans be more optimistic about this one, or even more pessimistic than they were in the first one?
I would say at the end of the movie, of the first one, teasing it up of what was going to happen, coming off of what that movie was, which to me, again, I feel like there were some good moments. I feel like they largely missed a mark, especially for a character right now that is so insanely popular in the comic industry, that they really needed to do something. And to be fair, I think Sony did its very best of what it's capable of. I fully believe that. I don't think that was intentionally done. I don't think they they half tried. I think that was them doing their best. I just don't think their best is very good because it's Sony, and we've seen them screw franchises up a lot. However, and again, I typically try to hold off all reservations from the trailer, but I am a sucker, and a lot of times the trailer will get me reinvigorated, reinvested for a movie. They changed Woody Harrelson's hair,
Thank God.
Which is great because now it looks like actual hair and
like a clown.
not a giant, insane like Chucky doll wig. Like it looks much better. I think the fact that he is in the movie, I love Woody Harrelson. I think he's very underrated.
He plays psychopaths very well.
Yes, I think people who only think of him as like comedian or Zombieland or things like that, yes, he's very funny, but he's a really good actor. He is underrated. He's very good at playing a psychopath, like you said, which Cletus Cassidy is. I think the one thing I did not have problems with in the first movie was the CGI, which I thought I was going to have a lot more than I did. My problems were more along the lines of people they cast, story plots, things like that they went through. So I think everything we've seen from Carnage is going to look insane. It's going to look awesome on top of how cool Venom already was. So I think from that standpoint of just having the two symbiotes, visually, it's going to look really, really cool.
So I'm different than a lot of people in that I actually didn't mind the first one. I thought it was entertaining for what it was, but I separate myself from it being a comic. I know that they can't do everything. The only thing that I wish they had done in the first one is been closer to the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s and have J. Jonah Jameson's son bring the symbiote back to Earth from a NASA trip, and that way it could still be tied to the Spider-Man mythos.
Well, that might be Kevin Feige. That's putting the nix on that one. It does boggle your mind though how he has a giant spider symbol on his chest when Spider-Man doesn't necessarily exist right now. But we'll glance over that small detail. That doesn't really matter. But
so. From watching it, I know one of our customers said that he is kind of still has some trepidation about it just because of it feels like a buddy cop movie, and that's not what he wants out of Venom. I don't know. I think that most movie-going audiences at this point want some sort of like joking along with the more seriousness.
Yeah, you can't have it all dark all the time. People aren't going to be there, and if you can, that's like a one thing. But if they want to keep this extended and go further than Venom 2, you can't just be completely dark pessimistic the whole movie. I don't think the general population of people who aren't diehard comic fans won't appreciate it.
So I think that we're of the same opinion that they should still have some reservations, but it looks like it should be entertaining.
Looks like it will at least be visually cool, if nothing else. Again, I don't know the storyline, haven't seen the movie, but at least I think visually it will be very cool and very pleasing to see Carnage and Woody Harrelson's take on Cletus Cassidy.
So we'll turn the page on that topic, and we will stop here for a second just to remind you to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe our YouTube channel. If you click on the brainstorm symbol in the bottom right-hand corner, it'll take you to the subscribe button. Be sure to click the notification button also. That way you can get when the new content's being added to the channel. So let's move on to topic number 2. It was recently announced that Batman 108 went north of 200,000 copies ordered by comic book shops, largely due to the hype that James Tynion IV put forth for the Miracle Molly character, regarding the first appearance of Miracle Molly. Is this good for the industry that the mere promise of a first appearance of a character can have such an impact on the sales of a book like that?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think on the one hand, anytime you can get hype around comics, which a lot of people say is a dead industry, it's not dead, but it's definitely, comics are not nearly as popular as film and there are other industries that are more popular right now, with the hope that you want it to grow and to reach that attainability, but being realistic of where it is. So anytime you can get somebody, off of the street, and I'm not saying that this particular thing will get any like Joe Schmo be like, oh, I saw online about this first appearance from Batman. I'm not going into that, but anytime you can build hype around this, the more casual fan who is reading comics, so they're kind of starting out, they're not all in, fully invested, it might draw their attention to that and say, oh wow, like this is a lot of people are talking about this is a big deal, like it's getting hyped up on a lot of different platforms. But on the other hand, you might have a deterrent to that, because what that also will do is, depending on the book or the company, that can also skyrocket the prices for when these first appearances come out, in particular the variants, which again, not everyone who is the common collector will want variants, but sometimes you see a variant that's really cool, you might want to have it, and a variant that might only have been $5 to $10 can shoot up to $40 to $50 just, or $100, depending on the ratio, aspect ratio variant. Just because some guy is hyping up and saying, trust me, I'm doing like a Jonathan Hickman thing with all this. I have this first appearance. You're not going to want to miss this. And all of a sudden, a really cool cover you might have wanted is now $100.
So I think Tenyon is a good writer. I don't think he needs to rely necessarily on saying like, oh, there's going to be a new character, there's going to be a new character. And it seems like his whole run has been kind of like...
It's been a lot of new characters.
And I mean, I understand it because you get royalties based on like if they become like successful and they get spun off into their own things, or be in a movie or what have you. I do feel like you're shortchanging yourself though when you make it seem like just all these first appearances are the reason you should be reading. Because like I said, I think he's been telling a very good Batman story.
Yes, which is nice. That's why I don't fault him for it, because so far it has not affected the overall storyline, and especially the overarching thing that's going on with a lot of the different Bat Family books right now. If it was getting in the way and it was making everything stop short and be like, hold on, who is this now out of the corner of the page? A first appearance, and just cutting the story dead, I'd have a bigger problem with it.
Well, the other thing is, though, like when you hype it up like that, it also means that the orders are going to be higher, and therefore the value later on is going to be, normally be less because there are so many more copies out there. I think it's better when it's a surprise, and it's, take the Daredevil 25 thing, for instance. And that wasn't a new character, but that was an old character taking on a new role. The surprise of that caused people to like come to the comic book shop, hey, there was an excitement to it. Whereas when you hype it up a month and a half ahead of time, you kind of lose that sense of excitement.
Right, that's fair.
Yeah. So we'll turn the page on that one. I'm sure we'll revisit it because it seems like more and more writers are starting to hype the first appearances of different characters and getting on that train in order to bolster their books a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So we'll move on to topic number 3. eBay has been throwing eBay sellers, comic book sellers, for a loop this past year. One of the things that they did was manage payments, which are taking a higher percentage of the overall sales. In addition to that, they announced that they're going to change their categories. They're getting rid of the eras, and they're putting them in the checkbox section instead of the drop-down menu. So if you have saved searches, apparently that's inhibiting those from working because they're not in the area that they normally are. More importantly, apparently they're also getting rid of the 98, 96, 94 designations, and they're going to brand new, like new, very good, good, and acceptable. Is it time for comic book sellers to move on from the eBay platform?
I don't know if it's time, but it's definitely seeming like eBay is doing all of the things that you would want to do if you wanted somebody to not be there anymore. Like changing things, moving things up. Your favorite grocery store, they completely change the layout. They start altering the prices. They relabel things. It's not the same brand you thought it was before. Now it's something else. You have no idea where to look. And I don't buy books on eBay. I'm not that type of collector. I stick to my weekly books type of deal. But just having been on there, I know it's a lot easier when you have the eras with the drop-down menu and when you have the 9.89, just to see what you're looking for and know up front. Things like that, like brand new and like new, well, what does that mean? Like
fans aren't.
Right, like new is very, that's up for a lot of interpretation. Like, what does that mean? If it's a 9.6, it's a 9.6. Like, you don't have to like the price tag attached to it, but you know what it is. You know what you're getting. You understand that some third party has designated that as a 9.6 and what that means. like new and or almost new and like kind of new, like that's very wishy-washy territory, and that can give you completely different styles of books. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't. If I was somebody who paid on eBay a lot and constantly got my books like that, to me, I would find that very frustrating.
Well, there is a rise in other platforms also. So there's Atomic Avenue where people can put their books on there and sell them for what have you. Now, of course, you know, there's a lot of trust involved in that, and eBay is very much on the buyer side for if the product is not in the condition that it was stated. And then there's also one that I just found out about this week called Hip Comic, where it's almost a eBay clone type thing. Now I couldn't see where you could search for like the sold listings and things like that, which was kind of annoying to me. Obviously, one of the things that I like about eBay, we use it here in the store to kind of get a general take of what books are selling for. We use a couple of apps also. I like to use coverprice.com, but it'll take a while before they can get into the kind of customer base that like eBay reaches, because that is the big selling point of eBay, how many people they reach.
Right, and they still are a very large company for what they do. And like you said, there are a few other avenues, but they're not eBay. You couldn't call them comparable to that yet. They don't have nearly the range, the reach, or the basis yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they stand a good chance of getting there, especially if more people talk about them, more people like.
And if eBay keeps doing crap like this.
Yes. And I know that some people use Mercari also, although I've heard a lot of complaints about Mercari as well. So I've never used them, so I don't know. But we'll turn the page on this one. Maybe we'll do a deeper topic about those alternatives to eBay later on, and maybe do a review of them, what we think. So let's turn the page. Again, before we continue, let's remind you to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe. The Brainstorm Comics and Gaming YouTube channel. You can click on the bottom right-hand corner, the Brainstorm logo, and it'll take you to the subscribe button. So let's move on to topic number 4. This one is going back to the graded well. I know we've talked about grading in a couple of different videos at this point. PGX is the second oldest grading company behind CGC, but due to controversies over the years, they are the third most trusted behind CGC and CBCS. This week, well, I guess last week, they announced a new entity, PGX East, partnered with some trusted names within the industry to, I think, probably to rehabilitate their name, if I had to guess. Do you think this will give collectors a trusted third option, or do you think that the damage is pretty much done to the...
Well, I think, and we've talked about this before, people, especially, in general, a lot of people, but especially in the comics industry, are very loyal to what they think is correct, what they think is good. CGC, for a lot of people, CBCS for some other people, kind of have that reputation. And I think, like you said, for some people, it's going to be fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on, they're not maybe going to be willing to give them the opportunity. I think based on what I've heard and what you said, that it could be a very, viable option, but I don't know if people are going to be willing to take that dip.
So let me go a little bit deeper, and then you can give a little bit more. So one of the names in this is Rob Pillsbury. He is the former CGC vintage grader. They are also going to do original art certification and preservation, which from my understanding, at least from what I've seen, I don't think CGC or CBCS offer. They're also going to offer print and poster grading. I think CGC offers that with as a side thing. And they're also going to do a dynamic forces designation and authenticate the signatures for those. So, and another name that they're going to have is Troy Vogel, who is a CGC rock concert poster finalizer, which my understanding is authenticating those. And he's also a paper money expert, so he's going to authenticate those for grading as well. And then 3 other names who I haven't had a chance to look up in terms of like their
Street credibility.
Importance to the credibility within the industry are Mike Halprin, Mike Carbonaro, and Martin Wallach. So the way that the article worded it sounded like all three of them are pretty important within the industry also. I'm not as big on that like back end side, so I don't know who they are. But
Right.
So I mean, it sounds like they have 5 big names that are trusted within the industry. So I don't know whether that'll change.
I think they're doing, everything sounds great. I think they're doing all the things you would want them to do. I think it's awesome that, and it's smart if like you said, is true, what they're doing with the preservation and things is a service that CGC, CBCS can't offer. I mean, that's business 101. Like when you want to compete with somebody else, what can you do? Well, if I can't, just immediately come out of the gate and take all your customers, well, let me try to do something that you're not doing. How can I offer more for maybe the same, the same amount?
Well, they do have the cheapest prices for.
So I think they're doing all the right things, but I think at the end of the day, I also know that I mean, people in general, like I said, but comic book fans are stubborn, and there are people, and there might be some people that just have that bad taste in their mouth and don't want to go back to the well. I think this might be somewhere for new collectors or people who, like myself, if I ever do decide that I want to start going down that route and getting a lot of my books slabbed and things like that. To me, that sounds interesting. I would be willing to try that out, but I haven't been burned by them before.
So my question is this. When you send it off, do you get to choose PGX East or do you get to choose regular PGX? And is there a designation on the label that says which one it came from?
Right.
Right. Because maybe people will trust the PGX East one, but not necessarily the PGX one. So I mean, there's still a lot of questions in terms of how this is going to roll out necessarily.
Right.
I would assume they're going to keep the same label, but then again, you have the question of like, well, which one did it? Like, is this a
Right. Do you really know if it was done by PGX, East, or are you just taking a gamble every time you send it out?
Yeah.
That's a fair question.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that it's a good idea on their part to try and rehabilitate their name. Obviously, the more options you have, the better. Sure. Right now, CBCS and CGC are overwhelmed with the number of submissions that they're getting. So PGX definitely probably sees an opening at this point, and are trying to jump in there and offer things that haven't been done before.
Which I think is always better. I think it's never great when you only have one option or two. Like I think competition and other things like that, it's healthy, but it also helps grow the industry. You distribute the wealth a little bit more. I think it's always a beneficial thing.
Yeah. So we will turn the page on that topic, and I'm sure we'll come back to it once they roll out a little bit more, and we can delve in a little bit deeper into what
actually see what's going on
instead of just their press release. Yes. So let's move on to the 5th and final topic. YouTube personalities are quickly becoming more prevalent and definitely influential on the comic book industry, racking up thousands of views in a week, affecting the market by mentioning a book or stating incorrect percentages. I won't say out any names there. Is this a benefit or a drawback for the comic book industry in terms of its long-term sustainability?
I think without adding that extension to the end of it, if you're just telling me for the industry, I think right now, I think it is doing the industry well. I think to have people, YouTube's very popular right now. I teach and I have kids that they don't watch TV. All they do is they watch YouTubers, and to have, people, and I'm not saying there's nearly as many about comics as there are for anything else because it's still smaller, but they exist. But you have people who are coming to these people and these personalities every week to watch their shows and to hear what they have to say and for things like that.
I think the draw for it is that people go, oh, he's a person just like me, and it's not some...
It's relatable. It's not an article they have to skim through. It's not previews they have to read through. Like,
it's not some company that chose the talking head.
Right.
Although I would argue that some of them probably were.
Well, yes, but for the like I said, for the layman, for just coming in, just looking at YouTube off the street, I think it's a cool thing for people. I think a lot of people like it, particularly I think younger people more willing to be and spend a lot of their time on YouTube. In terms of long-term sustainability, I have a lot of questions about that because, like you said, there's a lot of things going on where because these people are very influential, they can really rock the boat, both good and bad. And depending on how much reach they have for long term, it could really have a negative impact. One
of the examples of that to me, and I told you that I watched a YouTube video this week and it made me kind of angry because of, I told you I agreed with the guy's conclusion. I don't agree with how he got there.
Right.
He was talking about the 5th printing of Department of Truth #1. There was a secret variant to that one. It was the same secret variant as it was to the first one, but with a different coloring. The first one, people have generally agreed that was a 1 in 10. He stated he knows that this one is a 1 in 5. I don't know how he knows that, but he claims that he knows it's a 1 in 5. And he said that people shouldn't be spending this much on a 5th printing. That I agree with. I agree with his conclusion. I don't think a 5th printing should be worth more than a first printing.
No.
However, the way he got there is he said that the rarity of the 5th printing is less than the rarity of the first printing. There's more rarity to the first printing than there was to the 5th printing. And there's no way that that's true. And even if we agree to the 1 in 5 number that he gave, we can reduce this down to numbers so we can prove it. So let's say that there was 100 copies ordered of the first printing. That means that there would be 10 of the secret variant. That means that you need at least a 50% order of the 5th printing in order to meet the same number of copies of the first printing. There's no way that stores ordered 50% of the orders of the first printing for the 5th printing.
Right.
Like there's no way you get to that number.
Right.
But their channel is so influential that people listen to them, and hopefully people are running the numbers in their head and they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense, and there's no way that's true. But sometimes when you see somebody on those channels and stuff, they have so much credibility that
It's a name and a face you trust that you don't necessarily crunch the numbers for yourself. You take things at face value.
Exactly. But to get back to the core question, I think that it's both a benefit and a detriment. I think that it can help long term, it can hurt. My thing is this, I think that everybody should, I don't think there's any problem with watching any of the YouTube channels, but is it the trust but verify thing? Listen to them, but verify the things that they're telling you, because everybody's trying to push something. I don't even think people should believe everything that
Everybody's got an angle.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm a co-owner of Brainstorm Comics and Gaming. Obviously, I have a vested interest in comic books. Like, I'm giving my honest opinions on here, but that's what they are. They're opinions, and people have to take what they want out of it, and hopefully they do some research and come to their own conclusions as well. Like I said, I wouldn't just believe anybody, because like I said, everybody has their own angle to it, like you said.
Right.
But that's my concluding thought on that. I don't know if you want to throw out one more.
Yeah, like I said, I think we'll see. I mean, I think YouTube personality is not a new thing, but in terms of the comic industry, there is a couple people who over the last year or two have been really taken off, and there might be some new people making their way out there. A lot of insiders in the industry coming on to their shows and things like that. So it has increased in popularity
Tied
a
to
lot.
apps.
I think with COVID and the pandemic and everything slowing down, that kind of helped when people had the time to really invest and figure out that these things were going on. So I think it probably will continue to grow, and I think that will really dictate if these people if they have a positive agenda and they are not trying to do things, nefariously through the industry, it can have a good, impact. But if everybody's taking them at face value and what they're saying isn't necessarily true or credible and maybe intentionally untrue, just like with anything, it can cause a lot of detriment. So it's one of those things, we'll have to see. But like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's cool that this is an option. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had something like this except for
Wizard Magazine.
Right, yeah, that, or just talking to your local comic book shop owner. Like, you didn't have this option, so it's cool that it exists at all. And I don't want to snub my nose at it and walk away from it. But just with anything, just be wary.
Like I told you, I watch these things. I talk about it all the time, and they do irk me at sometimes when I feel like they're giving either misinformation or disinformation
or opinion as fact.
Or opinion is fact. And that's one of the things that I think we do. We make sure that we talk about that this is our opinions on these things. It's not gospel by any stretch of the imagination. But we will conclude the topic there. We will turn the page from that topic, and we will no doubt talk about it again, because that it riles me up. And nothing riles me up, right?
No, nothing at all.
So we will conclude this episode of Turning the Page by once again asking you to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe to the Brainstorm Comics and Gaming YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to visit our stores. We have one in Walkersville, Maryland. If you're into back issues, that's probably the one you want to go to. And we also have one in downtown Frederick, Maryland, which if you want a day trip, that's the one that you'll want to go to. There's all sorts of great restaurants and such in that area. So, you have anything else to say in closing? Say goodbye?
No, I mean, like I said, both shops are cool depending on what you want. A lot of good stuff on the eBay store as well. If you're a collector, always have good things going on here. So definitely, if you're enjoying the videos, feel free to stop on by.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Turning the Page, and we'll see you later.